All right, today we're diving into a short but incredibly intense ancient text, the book of Zephaniah. And let me tell you, this one is a real roller coaster. In just 3 chapters, it takes you on a whiplash journey. It kicks off with some of the most terrifying language you can imagine. I'm talking a vision of total cosmic collapse. But then it ends with a picture of pure absolute joy, a vision of God not as a terrifying judge, but as a singer. So how on earth do we get from that kind of wrath to rejoicing? Well, let's unpack it together.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to follow the book's dramatic flow. First up, we'll look at this prophecy of a coming storm. Then we'll see how that storm cloud just gets bigger and bigger, covering the whole world. After that, the focus zooms right back in on Jerusalem for one last warning. And then comes the big twist, a surprising promise of a purified people, and a finale that just explodes into a song of joy.
All right, Section 1, the coming storm, an unavoidable prophecy of doom. So we're kicking things off during the reign of King Josiah. Now, this was supposed to be a time of major religious reform in Judah, so you'd think things were looking up. But Zephaniah's message just shatters any sense of safety. He introduces this really intense idea that's going to cast a long, dark shadow over the first part of the book, a day of divine reckoning.
So, what exactly is this day of the Lord? Well, at the heart of this prophecy is this chilling idea. And, it's not a date you can just circle on your calendar. It's this recurring theme you see in a lot of the biblical prophets, but Zephaniah's take on it is, well, it's especially intense. It's this moment where God directly steps into history. Think of it like a cosmic audit, where all the world's moral accounts finally get settled. And yeah, it often happens through some pretty violent, world-changing events.
And wow, Zephaniah does not ease into this gently. The prophecy kicks off with this absolutely staggering declaration. The language here is totally universal. He's talking about wiping out everything. Man, beast, the birds in the sky, the fish in the sea. It's this terrifying picture of creation being uncreated, like hitting the cosmic reset button. It sets this incredibly serious tone right from the get-go.
So you have to be wondering, what could possibly provoke such a dire warning? Well, the text lays out the charges. And they range from really obvious stuff like idolatry, worshiping other gods like Baal and even the stars, to something a little more subtle, a kind of internal corruption. But look at that last point, complacency. This is huge. Zephaniah is saying it's not just about active rebellion, it's about this cynical attitude, this practical belief that God just doesn't care or get involved. And to him, that kind of indifference is just as bad as outright defiance.
And the prophet just keeps painting this picture, using this relentless barrage of dark, heavy words. Just listen to that list. It's a sensory overload of terror. This isn't some abstract theological idea he's talking about. It's a visceral gut punch of a portrait of total collapse. Every single word here feels like it's been chosen to make you feel absolute dread.
Okay, moving on to our second section, a world on trial. The judgment expands beyond Judah. So you might think this is just a local problem, right? Something for Judah to worry about, but nope. Zephaniah quickly expands the view, making it super clear that this day of the Lord has global implications. The entire world is about to be put on trial.
And the prophecy unfolds almost like a courtroom drama, just systematically calling out the nations. To the west, you've got Philistia. It's going to be made desolate. To the east, Moab and Ammon get this terrifying warning that they'll become like Sodom and Gomorrah. Then you go south to Ethiopia and even north to the world's superpower of the day, Assyria. The message is crystal clear. Nobody gets a pass. No nation is exempt from this divine reckoning.
All right, our third section, Jerusalem's final warning, a city corrupt from within. So after that whirlwind tour of the neighboring nations, the prophetic lens snaps right back into focus. It zeroes in on the heart of Judah, the city of Jerusalem itself, and reveals that actually the deepest, most serious corruption is happening right there at home.
And the text uses this powerful, almost primal animal imagery to describe the leadership. The princes, who are supposed to protect the people, they're like roaring lions, just devouring them. The judges, who are supposed to ensure justice, they're compared to evening wolves that leave nothing behind. Even the religious leaders, the prophets and priests, are called out as being totally corrupt, polluting the most sacred places. The entire system is just broken, right from the top down. And here's the thing. The text is crystal clear that they had been warned. The city itself is described as if it's a stubborn, rebellious person, one who heard the calls to change course but just refused to listen, refused to accept any correction. So this judgment isn't some surprise attack out of the blue. No, it's the unavoidable result of a long, long history of ignoring warning after warning.
So this brings us to a really critical turning point in the book. I mean, after all this talk of all-consuming wrath, this judgment against Judah and the entire world that seems to spare absolutely no one, you just have to ask, right? Is anyone left? Is this it? Is the story just over? Is there any hope left at all?
And now for Section 4, a purified people, the surprising promise of a remnant. Because right here, the entire tone of the book just pivots on a dime. It's honestly one of the most dramatic shifts you'll find anywhere in this kind of literature. We've had this relentless drumbeat of judgment, and then, suddenly, a completely unexpected promise of hope emerges from all the ashes.
So the answer to our question is a resounding no. It's not the end. The text reveals that the whole point of this judgment was never total destruction. It was about radical purification. It's like a refiner's fire that burns away all the impurities, all the junk. But a small group, what the text calls a remnant, they'll be preserved. They'll emerge from the flame.
So who are these survivors? Who makes up this remnant? Well, it's not the powerful princes or the arrogant judges we saw before. This group is defined by their character, not by their status. They are the meek and humble. All that pride and corruption that was condemned gets burned away, and what's left is a community built not on power or fame, but on a simple, trusting humility.
And that brings us to our final section, a song of joy, the ultimate restoration. And what a stunning conclusion it is. The story doesn't just end with a few survivors quietly rebuilding from the rubble. No, it culminates in an explosion of celebration, an outright command to rejoice.
Talk about a contrast, right? Remember those earlier commands for people to wail in the streets? Well, that is now completely replaced by this command. Sing, shout, be glad and rejoice with all your heart. It is a total 180-degree emotional reversal. All that language of grief and terror is just gone, and in its place is the language of pure joy.
The transformation is absolutely complete. You can see it side by side here. Before, the Lord's presence brought wrath and terror. Now, that same presence is the source of their safety and salvation. Before, they were being overwhelmed by enemies. Now, their enemies have been cast out. The disaster they were promised is replaced with a new promise. You shall see disaster no more. It is a total restoration.
And this right here is the breathtaking climax of the entire book. It's just an incredible image. The very same God who started this whole prophecy with a promise to utterly consume everything from the land now ends it by singing. This reveals a picture of God who isn't some distant, cold, impassive being, but one who is deeply, personally, emotionally invested in his people. He's not just saving them, he's delighting in them, rejoicing over this new, humble community with gladness and with a song. So, all this leaves us with a profound question to think about. This ancient text takes us on this wild journey from total wrath to total joy. What does that dramatic arc tell us about our own ideas of justice and redemption? It forces us to wrestle with how a single narrative can contain both a fierce, unyielding justice against evil and corruption, and at the same time, a boundless, redeeming love that literally breaks out into singing. It's that powerful, challenging tension that has made this short book resonate for thousands of years.